Hello.
Hello.
La, la, la. Guess who's back?
He's down with the
Nah, nah,
sickness, but he's
Yeah.
he's recovered. He's on the road to recovery, and not going to stop him from watching Seinfeld.
I'm not dying when I walk up the stairs anymore. So
Yeah.
it's something. But I caught the big dirty C and trying to live my life, but I've been off work for almost 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
Recording some podcasts.
There you go. We're getting it in.
And we found out yesterday that Estelle died as well.
Yeah.
George Costanza's mama.
George's mom.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
that's 93.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
You're like, wow. So, you lived a long life.
Not a huge surprise, but still kind of a loss for our community.
Yeah.
with the podcast. So. But this episode, we're doing The Revenge.
Yes.
I actually had 2 copies on the DVD, which threw me off.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go over what that is near the very end of the episode.
So there's 2 versions of this episode? Or
yeah, there's the original airing version and then the syndicated version.
Okay.
Well, might as well say it now. We meet a new character in this episode that we haven't met before, but by mention and by voice only.
Yeah.
And so Newman, who I don't think he's mentioned Newman before. I think this is the first time they actually mentioned Newman in the whole thing. And when near the end of the episode, Kramer's yelling outside talking to Newman, and the voice is Larry David yelling back. And then in the syndicated version, so the version that would have been on Netflix, it is the same actor playing Newman.
Oh, so Wayne Knight? On Netflix, it was still Larry David.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They put the original version, I guess.
Yeah, they must have put that one on. Because, they have another version out that
has Wayne Knight.
Wayne Knight.
Yeah. Nice. Anyways, but so we'll get to that when it comes up to it. So this is season 2, episode 7, The Revenge. It opens up with a bit kind of about criminal and terrorists or whatever. Jerry's talking about like when they get carted away or escorted and they're trying to have their faces covered and stuff like that. And he's kind of going about like, oh, what are they worried about? Like that their boss is going to see him, and then it's like on Monday, it's like, hey, he's he's fired or he's not. That's so and so in sales. Maybe it's just the time of the joke. If it's like in the 90s and stuff like that. That doesn't happen today.
No.
And nowadays it doesn't really fit or work so much because I'm like, okay, I wonder even if it did ever. Anyways. But nowadays, people get blasted all over social media before anything comes up. Yeah. Not even just the trial. What is it? Trial by social media or something like that or whatever. It's like you're plastered all over the place. So it's like if you're doxxed I think is the phrase that people use.
Yeah.
You're doxxed.
No matter what you do. You do something and you're done. It's just.
Yeah. Which is not like to say, well, cancel culture or whatever, but it's also like to, it's like there's no time for any of that the foolishness.
I saw today, we're not going to get too into it, but Netflix is halting production on Will Smith's next big feature. I'm like, he slapped somebody. We have an industry that thrives, like the Marvel movies. They're the biggest thing going, making the most money, and it's all violent. It's all fighting and punching and kicking.
Yeah.
And then someone does it in real life and they're like, oh my God, he's an awful human being. I'm like, well, that's how you guys make all your money is off of violence.
He slapped somebody and cried on TV.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
he went through
it's also
all
like,
the emotions.
It might be that they're like, yo, we don't want this guy on our, not because of the violence, but because it's like this guy lost his shit and cried on TV. It's like, maybe he's not the best like action star.
Yeah. We'll hold off on I'm Legend 2 for a little bit.
Yeah. It's like, you know what? It's slapping somebody, not punch. That's what the thing is. Just like slap, right? 5 fingers.
Well, that
to
made
the face.
sense to me.
No,
people
totally.
Were like, well, why didn't he punch him? Like, well, he slapped him because open fist, paper beats rock.
Yeah. It is. Oh, exactly. Just a little. It was funny. I like all the jokes. It is funny. All the memes for it, and there's a lot of great Seinfeld ones too.
Yes,
from that. I love the one where it's like George is like, she's bald, and it shows Will Smith slapping the shit out of George like,
yeah, she's bald.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Just Will Smith. I think there's another one where Elaine's like, you're bald, and so Will Smith slapping Elaine. It's the same joke. It's still funny to me.
Yeah, same scene even. I think
exactly.
It's like the next line.
But yeah, anyway, so it's like that joke doesn't really land, or like not that it doesn't land, but it's like it doesn't fit today. I don't know if it even fit back in the 90s. But anyways, so the episode opens up and it's in an office, which George's boss's office, and his boss is there on the phone. You only hear his end of the conversation. He's just being like a creep.
He's total slime ball. Huh?
Yeah, he's just talking about just sex stuff. But he's really dirty.
The whole thing.
Yeah. Oh God. He's like, I taped the whole thing. It's like, I'm like, you already just infer that this guy is like, yeah, kind of gross. They do a great job of like these characters making you not like them just right away. Almost no redeeming qualities of these people. So
30 seconds in, you're like, I don't like this guy at all.
Yep. You're not supposed to like him. You don't. You're on George's side. Which George comes in. The guy's on the phone. George comes in hot and heavy. And he just tees off on this guy and saying that he quits. The guy, doesn't even say a word. George is like, "You're a laughingstock. You're a joke." Da 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 da. George is just going, and then he storms off and quits, leaves. It's like the guy didn't even say anything. He's just like, I don't remember, but I don't know if his jaw was dropped. He's just like,
so he's just kind of staring at like, what the hell is going on here?
George has the first and only and final word of that conversation. So he leaves. And then it goes to Jerry's apartment, and he's putting away clothes into a laundry bag, and Kramer busts in and tells him about Newman. So this character that you don't see, but he's like, oh, Newman. He's like, we hear that this Newman character woke up Kramer early in the morning, like 3 a.m., saying he's going to kill himself, and he's on the rooftop, he's going to do it. And then, it kind of builds up this like Newman character to be like, oh, he's like on edge or whatever, which, this doesn't really seem like our Newman,
No.
It seems like a throwaway character and just like they gave him a name.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like our, Jolly Newman, I guess.
It's like they didn't have the plan for him yet.
Yeah. Or they were just like, or they were just like, well, here's just a name, whatever. And then they, ended up, it's like, oh, let's make this Newman character a thing. But it's like, do you remember that this guy was like neurotic and he's going to, wanting attention and saying that he's going to, kill himself or whatever just to get, sympathy and attention from Kramer? Anyway, so he's saying that he's going to kill himself. So, Kramer just says, just do it. Jump.
He told him to jump.
He says he's going to do it. He's been doing it for, saying he's going to do it for years. He's like, I'd respect the guy for actually accomplishing something.
Yeah.
The guy, he's got nothing to live for. He's got no job, no girls. And then Jerry's got a little dig. He's like, well, he called the right guy.
Call the right guy.
He's like, what am I going to say? He's got nothing to live for. Anyway, so he's just kind of, like his conversation with Newman. Nothing happened at that point. Spoilers.
Yeah.
But, Jerry, he's, like I said, he's, leaving to go drop off his laundry. So, and then Kramer's giving him a thing. So, just use the machines downstairs. He's like, no. His little line's like, you drop it off and pick it up. You fluff and fold. It's the only way to live.
Yeah, you don't got to do anything.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. Again, clothes and laundry is a big thing in New York, apparently.
Yeah. I'm going to move to New York so I can do laundry all the time. And
that's all they talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, have I ever done that? But to like drop off your clothes.
When I went to school in Charlottetown, so in a different province altogether, when I did my first paramedic course.
Yeah.
I was there for 3 months, and there's a laundromat, and there's a table down back, and they had a little canteen, like they made French fries, hamburgers, the basic, like diner stuff. So we go in, get an order of fries or poutine or something, because we're in Canada.
Yeah.
And we'd start our laundry, and the one working, she would switch it over to the dryer for us, and she would fold it and everything, because we were studying. So she's like, you guys study, I'll take care of your laundry for you. So we just sat there while she did our laundry for us. She like taking care of us, I guess. But they did have that option. It costs more, but I guess if you were a kid studying, she didn't mind helping out, and she just did it for free. So
oh yeah, no, that's nice. I like the idea for sure, but just having somebody else like do your laundry, it just seems kind of weird for me. You know, like,
can I do my own underwear?
Like exactly. It just that is one for sure. Your underwear, it's like, okay, I don't want, and then I'm like, my socks and shit, like they get ripe for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm like, somebody dealing with that. And to me, the laundry is not that big of a pain to do. Say your chores and stuff that you got to do. Like, of the basic chores, it's not that bad of the bunch. Yeah. Vacuuming, sweeping, I actually like. It's not that bad, right?
Here, primarily cooking's my job. Mm-hmm. Primarily laundry's Ashley's job, but I don't mind.
Yeah.
Just folding a load of laundry. It's not a big deal to me to do. So,
yeah, totally. And then, taking out the trash or sorting recycles or whatever, it's not a big to do. Like, I'm totally fine with that. My biggest one that I fucking hate is doing the dishes. Always have.
Yeah. Even there's always more to do. You finish the dishes and you're like, I didn't even eat, and there's another plate there. Where'd it come from?
And you gotta let it dry. And I know some people, like, they dry them and then put them away. Like, with the towel. I mean, no, you just let them dry in the rack.
No.
Fuck it.
You gotta make God do something.
Yeah.
Like, let God dry them.
That's definitely my least favorite, is fucking doing the dishes. I'm like, I fucking hate it. Fair. And then ever since I was a kid, I remember we would have chores, and I would be like, I hated that. Like, I'll take out the trash. I'll do everything else besides
the dishes.
Mm-hmm. Just throw away plate. That's so bad. Just have paper plates. And
we have compost here. You can put the paper plate in the compost. So you're actually helping the environment.
Yeah. Listen to a podcast. The guy's like talking about. It's like, man, I hate doing dishes. I mean, if I could, I'd have paper skillets, man. And microwave everything. He's like, I don't Dixie cups. I'm like, you're 35 years old. But anyways, so back to it. Kramer, is like pushing him to, like, it's like, oh yeah, do the laundry downstairs, and he's like, no, okay. And then Kramer instantly flips. It's like, hey, take my laundry too. It's like, I thought you were just saying how it's a bad idea to go take your laundry and just do it yourself.
Someone else is doing it for you.
Yeah, after he's giving you that, he's like, you're already going over there.
Yeah.
And then the, like, kind of the banter of, like, Jerry's clothes with Kramer's clothes. He's like, I don't want my guys. They don't know your guys.
Have you met my guys?
And that argument, I 100% get that. Because it's like, you don't want, your friend's dirty ass clothes with your dirty ass clothes. It doesn't make sense.
It's something I never really thought of, but when you think of it, you don't want to wash your drawers with your friend's drawers. You just don't want them all married to each other for an hour. It's just they're rubbing against each other.
Exactly.
It doesn't seem proper.
Like, I totally understand where he's coming from. As silly as that is, I'm like, no, that makes sense. Yeah. To me, in my brain, I'm like, yes, of course you wouldn't want to do that. Are you insane? Yeah. Anyway, so he goes to the laundromat, which, as I was writing my notes, I'm like, I was watching the episode with I usually do it with the subtitles on, just so if I catch a line or whatever. And I'm like, I didn't know laundromat. Like, it didn't even occur to me because I never spell it out. I'm like, oh, it's laundromat is one word. I put laundromat, and it never corrects it for me.
I was writing it down, and I wrote down laundromat, and I was like, is that right? Is it laundromat? I had to question myself. So
yeah,
same kind of moment. Yeah.
I put, like, some of my notes that are like laundromat, and I'm like, oh, because the iPhone doesn't know that. I was like, you meant laundromat? Yeah. Anyways, aside.
Stupid iPhone.
So he's going the smartphone, more like dumb phone. So he's going at the laundromat, and he's talking to the guy. He's like, hey, just like, this is my friend's. Can you make sure that it's in, like, a separate, separate these? And it's like, kind of even the joke of, like, even if it's a completely, I don't even want the washers to touch, the machines to touch.
Yeah.
That's how far away he wants it.
Touching.
It's going to cost extra, whatever it costs. His whole thing. He just does not want to do it. The fact that he even took it too is funny. It just, I mean, it's funny. They're boys, but he's like, I'm not gonna, we're not that close.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's George comes into the laundromat behind Jerry to tell him that he quit his job. And I thought it was
just out of nowhere. He's like, how did you know I was here?
Exactly. It was pretty good that like he pointed it out, because it could have been just one of those like lazy writing, kind of things. It's like, oh, yeah. George walks into the scene, and then Jerry looks around and is like, how did you know I was here? Like, why are you here? Yeah. It's like, oh, Kramer told me. I don't know. To me, I'm like, it's a good critique of the show writing, kind of like sometimes shit just happens to push the plot forward. It's like, wait, why is a character there? How did this happen? Anyways, move forward. But it was a good little, like, him just looking like, what, why? So how did you know? So I talked to Kramer. And the fact that he would be like, oh, Kramer said you're here, and he bolts over to the laundromat.
Yeah.
Anyway, so George is, talking to Jerry about how he quit his job and why he quit his job. So he quit the job because George used his boss's private bathroom, and then he got a personalized memo telling him that he needs to use the men's room in the hall. And it's a shared bathroom with another company. It's disgusting. And that's why George quit. No other reason.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny, and it adds to it. It's like, what a dumbass.
He felt disrespected. So
quit. Exactly. Like it starts off like making you think that he had a legit reason, like, for quitting. No, it just
the opening scene seemed like something big happened,
and of course he didn't, which makes it great. It makes it a very George thing. It's just him doing it. So, and then he talks about like, well, what are you gonna do now? It's like, well, I can't look for a job in real estate. The market's terrible, and no one's hiring. And it's like, Jerry's like, so what are you gonna, like, when he says, what are you gonna do? That's when George realizes he fucked up.
I like how they brought that up too, because he was a realtor in season 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know if they actually covered when he stopped being a realtor. So it's good that he kind of said, I can't do that. Same thing. They brought that back into the story that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, he just dove right in, and he had no plan.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I'm like, he's just like, it's just like, all right, I'm fucking quitting this job. Da, 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 da. Have you ever quit like a job and like gave him like hell? I would always like, I have that. I've never either. I guess I have like that fantasy that I'm like, oh man, I would love to say this. If say you had already something better lined up and you could just actually quit and not even do the 2 weeks, just like, hey, fuck you, pal.
It's a common conversation in the ambulance of, if you won the lottery,
how many
days? How many days would you last before you told someone off? And you kind of just dream of what would you do if I won a couple $1 million today. How long would I last at work before I totally lost it on somebody? So,
yeah, and it wouldn't even have to be that much money. Like $1 million, it's like that you could be pay off bills, pay off the house and stuff like that, and then just work part time on something that you like.
You give me $200,000 tomorrow, I'm telling someone off at work. Yeah. It's happening.
Give me $2,000. I'm gonna fucking.
You got a $5 on
you? Splash a drink in someone's face. Like, where the hell did you get that cocktail from? But I mean, I have left a job when I was younger, like I was still in high school, teenager or whatever. Can't see him anymore. I had my lips pierced. So I got like a piercing on my lip, and apparently this place, I didn't even think about it. It's like, you can't have facial piercings. You got to take it out. I'm like, I just got this. I can't take it out. It's like, I'm like, all right, I guess I quit. I left.
I'd want to in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
And
I wonder if I could still do it. But
I think it grows over more than I feel like the inside's grown in, but the
outside,
you can see the hole a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my supervisor goes, what are we going to do about that lip ring? I'm like, what do you mean? What are we going to do about it? He goes, well, what are you going to do with the lip ring? I'm like, I don't know. I had it for like a year at that point. He never said anything until this day.
Yeah.
Goes, what if someone reaches out and grabs a hold of it? I said, if someone grabs a hold of my lip ring, we got bigger issues.
You're going to grab my lip too.
Yeah. Maybe they grab my shirt, they grab my ear, they grab my hair. No one's reached out and grabbing that lip ring. We have bigger issues at that point.
Pinpoint. Right? Oh, there we go. That one.
Yeah. I'm going to get you, and the little pinchers out to grab a hold of.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, it's funny. So I'm like, it's like, I technically just did quit, not no 2 weeks or whatever, but it was like, you're a teenager. working in like just like a retail kind of job. And I'm like, all right, then I'm done then, because it's gonna take like 2 months to heal. And they're like, okay, well, bye.
See you later.
Exactly. And it's like, it's funny. That's the only time I ever like really quit a job. I guess I quit one before. So my very first job. So I've only quit 2 jobs, and it's all teenager jobs.
The other ones I quit were I was moving on to something different.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I didn't really tell them off or was disrespectful. But sometimes you're at work and like, oh man, like you said, the fantasy. I'm like, man, if I had,
you'd love to,
$1 million, and like I said, $1 million's like, it is a lot of money, but it's not going to set you up to where you never have to work again.
Let's say where you can enjoy your job somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anyways, so we're back at Jerry's, and then him and George are brainstorming job ideas for George to apply for. George is obviously bummed, like it's weighing on him now, like visibly. He's like, oh shit. So he's just going off and like these kind of like, I like sports. I could do something in sports. And then Jerry's like, okay, well, Jerry's being a good sport, trying to like,
in what capacity?
so supportive, but he's also trying not to sugarcoat it. And he's like, well, I like sports, so I could be like a general manager of a baseball team or an announcer. I always make good comments during the game. I make good comments during a game. And then he's like, well, normally it's like, well, general manager, that could be tough. He's like, well, an announcer, that they usually give those to ex-ball players or people in broadcasting. And he's like, well, I like movies. I could, be like, like run the projector. He's like, okay, do you have any experience doing that? Like, no, and it's probably a union job.
Yeah, that's probably a union thing.
And he's like, and then he goes to be like, well, I like sports and movies. I mean, I could be a talk show host. How do you do that? It's like, that might be hard to get. It's like, guys, yeah, because you can't just walk into a studio and say you want to be a talk show host.
Yeah. George, it's all politics.
Yeah, that's what it was. But he's like Jerry's like kind of, he is, I guess, kind of trying to like be supportive, but he also is like shooting him down. It reminds me of a kid thinking of like dream jobs and be like, oh, what I can do, I can be a firefighter and I can do this. I'm like, well, there's other things involved. You don't just like walk in, put on a helmet and be like, all right, let's go get a Dalmatian. You go off to the it does not
the Dalmatian.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. Or like when kids like, they just have like jobs or think of things that like aren't actual jobs is kind of what made me think like, when you were a kid, you're like, oh man, you love playing video games or something like that. Made you think like, oh, what if I did that for a living? Your parents were like, you can't, that's not a job. Nobody's ever going to pay you to play video games. Nowadays, in 2022, people are making a living on YouTube and Twitch by just talking about video games or playing video games. It's like, what the hell happened there?
Yeah, I know.
And sometimes they're making
and good living. Like there's a few I watch and they're making a good living buying houses with this money. So.
And I'm like, it's like, even, we have like friends and people that we know who play like guitar and they do review guitar gear or they are, and they do that for a living on YouTube. Mm-hmm. They don't have a band. They're not creating music. They're just talking about guitar. I'm like, what the fuck?
Some of them just had 500 people watch him shave his beard on live stream. So.
And I'm like, it's wild. Anyways, that's kind of funny. But anyways, back to George.
This was good foreshadowing as well, where he said he liked sports and didn't know what he could do in sports because eventually, spoiler alert.
Yeah, he goes to work.
George works for the Yankees.
The Yankees.
Yeah.
It definitely again hammers on that George didn't think it through. He they're going through, and Jerry's like, well, what if you just pretend like it didn't happen, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And George is like, that could work. No, it's not gonna work. And because that's the best thing that Jerry has for him. It's like, I don't know, all these like your stupid job prospects that you have in your mind, those aren't gonna work. But maybe if you just try and get the job that you had again, just pretend like it didn't happen. He's like, yeah.
The funny part about this part, Larry David worked for Saturday Night Live, and he said he's there for about half a year. They only put one of his skits on the show, so he's been writing for them for 6 months.
Yeah,
and they only took one of his skits and used one of his skits. And he got pissed off, and he went in the office, and he told them off, and he quit. And he went home. And he said he came back on Monday, and they said, what are you doing here? He quit. He goes, I was joking. I joke around. That's what I do. And he actually, this was Larry David's thing.
So it actually,
and the other writer, it's actually something Larry David did. Quit Saturday Night Live and then just went back on Monday. So, and the other part, Larry Charles, the other writer.
Yeah.
He said that Larry David and Jerry had a bathroom in their office, and then his office was beside their office, and he had to use the hallway bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So he would just go into their office and use their bathroom without asking them all the time.
Yeah.
So they took those two stories and they merged them and then came this side.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. That is an actual story.
Yeah, exactly.
So it goes to, so George is going to do it. Jerry convinces him, like, hey, just kind of play it off like it was like it never happened or it was a joke. And it goes into
emotional.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. George is like, this could work. I'm like, no, that sounds so fucking stupid. Anyway, so it goes on to a stand-up bit where Jerry's kind of talking about, working in an office and like the pointless greetings that you have to do. It's like, hey, Jim, how's it going? Hey. And it's like, you kind of like, at a certain point, you see the person so many times, like, how many times are you going to say, hey? It was like,
say hello every time you pass somebody.
Yeah. It's like kind of switch it up like, hey, Jimbo. So it was like a little quick one. There wasn't a whole lot of meat on that one, but it kind of breaks it up to go. Now we're in the meeting room at George's, job, and he sneaks in. You can kind of see him,
whatever his job is.
Yeah, kind of trying to sneak in, like he's not going to get, noticed at least. And then he tries to get by in conversations, just adding himself in. I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah. It's like, oh, a great weekend, good weekend. I had a good weekend. When people are talking, and then he does get spotted pretty like abruptly. There's that red-haired lady, and it's another character that they make very annoying, and like she's a damn cartoon character. It's like you're like, yep, you're not supposed to like her.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing here? Like so loud. It's like, what are you doing here? Didn't you quit? And it's like, no, shut up. Kind of thing. Like you're blowing up the spot already. But anyway, so George sits down. The meeting's getting started. The boss walks in. And then it makes a sex joke at one of the women who work there. Said something about like, oh, where were you on Friday? It's like, oh, I got tied up. I bet you did. And everybody guffaws.
Yeah, everyone thinks it's hilarious.
They're like probably forced to laugh or like kind of like, oh, I don't want to like get fired from this dickhead. Yeah. And I like how it says guffaws because it was like Netflix used that phrasing. You know how it's like they put in brackets like guffaws.
Perfect.
But yeah, anyways, and then the boss, he's talking and then he like sees George. But as he sees George after he mentions the 10th anniversary party and location and time, and like, oh, yeah, that seems a little convenient that George can use that for later. Just kind of like, the little sitcom writing there. It's like, oh, this will come in handy later. Anyway, so George, he gets spotted by the boss, and the boss like, didn't you, he's like, didn't you quit on Friday? Going off and off. And then he calls George out, and then he gets his word in, the last word in. He's like, I'll always be a winner, and you'll always be a loser. And then it ends. So you can tell this guy's just a dickhead, and he loves being an asshole.
Yeah, and he's the boss.
Mm-hmm. So, and it goes to the laundromat scene where George retells, the story to Jerry, what happened. It's like, he's like, oh, it's like, he said that I'll always be a winner, you'll always be a loser. And then Jerry's like, well, I guess that's it. He's like, no, that's not it. And George, he's picking up his laundry or whatever. That's why they're there. But George reveals that he's got a trick up his sleeve. He says he's gonna slip him a Mickey at the big party.
What even is a Mickey?
Exactly. They like, what's a Mickey? And they ask the same thing in the show, and they never say what it is. Like, is it like poison? Like, it's got to be
drug of some sort.
But what is? Yeah, exactly. It made me think of like, well, I had like an old coworker. This is like years ago. She talked about how like she was like a flight attendant, I believe, and like the real assholes in like or whatever. She was like, oh, sometimes you'd put Visine in their drink, and it gets more than the red out. And she winked. I'm like, Jesus Christ. It's like make them throw up or shit themselves. And I'm like, is that the Mickey? But the Mickey later says that it's just like, oh, it makes them woozy. You might keel over. And I'm like, okay, what? It still doesn't say what it is.
Google says it's a drugged or doctored drink. So it's a drug added to a drink to make the drinker unconscious, but it doesn't. There's not an actual drug listed. So yeah,
but so he's gonna do that, and he says he's got a Mickey source. It's like, where do you even get one? I can't even believe I'm saying Mickey. So they never say what it is. They never say who's the source. It makes you think, is it like one of Kramer's friends, Bob Sacamano or something like that? He's the Mickey source.
It's like a Forget Me Now from Arrested Development.
Yeah, never seen that show. But
that's a good one. We'll do that. We'll do that in 5 years when we're done this one.
See, that's a show that I've been like, people have told me to watch it, and I've tried to watch it like 3 times. I can never get it.
Really? Never.
And even like had, Kyle was like, you got to watch this episode. This is the best one. I watched the banana stand or something like that.
Yeah.
Episode is like, and
always
I'm like,
money in the banana stand.
Yeah. And I'm like, Kyle's like, isn't this hilarious? I'm like, what is going on that makes it so funny? He's like, everything's going wrong. And I'm like,
Kyle, if you're listening, Kyle, and you want to do a podcast called The Banana Stand, hit me up.
That could be it. Yeah. Anyway, so George mentions that Elaine's down to help. Like, they're going to stick it to this guy because he's a misogynist. But it's like, but also the main reason is because he also doesn't recycle.
Doesn't recycle.
Which I thought was like I'm like, why? That's going to be something that you're like, oh, this is a reason to drug somebody is because they don't recycle. So clothing and laundry, that's a big thing in New York, and recycling too. That's what we found out. So, I mean, it's all like he's doing it for revenge, just to like get this guy, and, Jerry's like, it's just for revenge. Like, isn't like living well the best revenge? And then George, he's like, there's no chance of that. So he's going to stick with the Mickey plan. So he goes, we're back at Jerry's apartment, and Kramer comes in and talks to him about, says that Newman jumped. And he's like, so what happened? He's like, well, he said he was going to jump. And I said, wave to me, when you pass by my window. Like Kramer's still not like super sympathetic. And it turns out he just jumped from the second story and he just faked it. He's laying on the sidewalk.
Yeah. Papadopoulos across the street saw him. He's just laying there faking.
Yeah. So he's like just trying to get back at Kramer. That's what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it definitely doesn't seem like the mailman Wayne Knight jambalaya
like a different character
Newman that we know. He's like, it's just, they didn't think about it. He's not like a full-fledged character at the moment. I'm sure they're just like, oh, here's just like pass by Bob Sacamano kind of thing. And then he ended up being somebody. But anyways, this is kind of like, out of nowhere, Jerry mentions that he had $1,500 cash that he stashed away in his laundry bag. He forgot all about it. And then they took the bag to the laundromat.
Yeah.
And then he can't find it. And so they're like, oh, we got to rush over there. To me, it was a real random kind of tack on for the episode. It's like, where did that come from?
Reason to get back to the laundromat, I guess. But
it's
a lot of money to have stashed in here.
I mean, it kind of does fit with the theme of the episode, but we'll get there in a second. But anyway, so they leave. They get back to the laundromat. He brings it up to the owner, and the guy's incredulous. He's like, "It's not my responsibility, not my problem," kind of thing. He just has his stogie, and he's like, "Whatever," And it's like
that too. Smoking a cigar in a laundromat
inside, yeah.
Come clean your clothes, go home smelling like cigars.
Yeah,
fresh
he's
clothes.
Like, he's got the sign that says like not responsible for personal property or something like that. And then they kind of go off the whole thing. It's like, what that gives you a license to steal? It really makes the guy seem like he stole it. Really makes it seem like he's an asshole too. It's like, that's not my problem. Blah 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 blah. Which kind of. Goes with like I said, the theme of the episode is revenge. So now Jerry and Kramer have a person to get revenge against, right? Get their revenge on,
Revenge everywhere.
Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a tack on, but I'm like, okay, I guess it goes with it. So now we go back to, so now we have like 2 stories going on. So I think this is one of the kind of first episodes that it had this, right? Where 2 things are going on at the same time.
Yeah,
they kind of play off each other. nothing's too deep, but they kind of do play off at the same time. Anyway, so they go to the bar party scene with George and Elaine. They're scoping out the place. They're playing their moves. They're, again, they make a really, great job of making this guy, the boss, a piece of shit.
Yeah. And we don't get a whole lot of George and Elaine alone scenes. And this one here, they really, like when they're kind of going over the plan together, they really played well off each other, but you didn't see a whole lot of that through the whole series. There's not a whole lot of
and
alone time.
There's some later on where it's even like awkward that they are together. They point it out because it's like, we always have Jerry here.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're are talking about the boss. I'm like, who is he? I'm like, oh, he's that guy over there. They're swishing his drink around in his mouth. He's like, the guy looks like a blowfish. He's just like, I'm like, just like, yeah, he looks like a dickhead. Yeah. Anyway, and then they're talking about like, oh, this is so exciting. It's like, this is awesome. This is what they would do in the movies. And it's like, totally. And George is,
that's what I told Jerry.
He's like, I never felt so alive.
They're just eating their snacks. It's all evil.
Yeah, like evil. Yeah, like they're like, yeah, we're gonna get this fucker. So it goes back to the laundromat, and then Jerry and Kramer, they got their own scheme going on here. For revenge. Kramer's got a big old bag of concrete mix in his laundry bag, and he's gonna dump it in the machine. And it's like when it's done, it's just gonna be a solid block.
That's the plan.
I don't think that's how it would work, but it definitely would be a pain in the ass, like a big old mess, and just fuck up the machine for sure.
Yeah, it wouldn't solidify that quick, but it'd definitely be a pain in the ass to clean.
Yeah.
And this here, when you see Kramer's kind of stumbling with the bag. Yeah. And usually in shows they have like a fake bag, it'll be full of foam or something. But Michael Richards said he wanted an actual bag of concrete. They got him a 60-pound bag of concrete, and that's what he's working with there. Because he said he wanted to have the weight so he can actually work with it. Yeah. And this is when he added more slapstick. He said this is kind of an evolution, whereas the last one, the detective part where he comes in as the cop. Yeah. He said that was kind of his big moment for who he was as a character. He said this was the turning point to add some slapstick and some
like a physical
acting into it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was definitely a good physical bit for him. And then he's, wrestling with this concrete bag and he's falling over and stuff like that. He's doing a good job of like it is an actual bag of concrete. He's falling over, trying to get it into the washing machine, tipping it over. And then, Jerry's, his job is to distract the owner while Kramer's doing this, like slinking around super smooth, but he's making so much fucking noise. Bang, bang. And he's like, bah. So you hear it. Anyway, it goes back to the bar. So this is like kind of funny because like setting up both scenes and they're going at the same time. Yeah. Back to the bar. Elaine, she's trying to get that guy's attention because her job, she's going to distract him. Well, George, slips him the Mickey. So she's, tries bumping into him. The guy, kind of ignores. She sneezes to get his attention. And then she also tries to make small talk. And none of it's working. And then she's like, okay. So you can see her visibly thinking like, okay, what can we do? Oh, I got it. She's going to talk about it. It's like, oh, I'm going to a nudist colony this weekend. And then that's instantly the guy he turns his body to look. It's like, oh, she got him. Got his attention. And she just talks about being naked and he's all about it. So again, the guy's a creeper.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I know what can work for this guy. But anyways, that same red-haired lady from before, the annoying one, Glenda is her name. She sits down in the chair that George wants to be in to, do the Mickey slipping. He quietly tries to get her to move, and then she's just so fucking loud and he's gonna blow his cover. He's like, what do you want to sit here for? There's so many other seats. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
We all know that person too. Right? Like, yeah.
And so George is like, okay, you're going to blow my cover. He leaves. Back to the laundromat. Kramer, he's, being the cartoon character that he is in the background, getting mix everywhere. Jerry's like doing his best to then make shit small talk about washing clothes. And then Kramer is completely covered in the mix after he dumped it in the washer.
It's all over the back of the machine. It's everywhere down in the corner.
It's just like
on his face.
He's trying to play it cool. He's like, "Oh, I didn't realize it was a full box," referring to it being like, the powdered detergent instead of the mix. So then it goes back to the bar, and George he's like, "Okay, I gotta sit in that seat," and he whispers to Glenda. It's like she's got to move, or else he's gonna rip off her wig in 3 seconds, or at the count of 3.
I don't wear a wig.
She said, I don't wear a wig, and he goes 1, and then she grabs her shit and she leaves. Now George is in position. He goes back to Elaine. She's like laying it on thick, which is pretty good. She mentions how she doesn't, really have a place, an apartment or a place that she lives, and she's like, "Oh, I just kind of sleep around." And then that guy's loving it.
Yeah.
She knows she's got him on the line. And she's like, okay. And she's like, "Oh, this will work." It's like, "Oh, close your eyes. Like, I want to tell you a secret about my bra." And I'm like, Jesus, like this guy is that much of like a horn dog. He's like, "Oh, I can't wait to hear this." And he leans in and then he's like closes his eyes. And then George dumps it in there. And so he does the deed. And then, George, which I'm like, I don't know why he introduced himself. He's like, "Hey," it turns out the guy's name is Rick. "Hey, Rick." Yeah. And he's like, the guy is super happy. He's loving it because he's like, "Oh my God." He's like, "I'm lucky. I'm the luckiest man alive. Things just fall into your life." Do you ever just feel lucky? Because he feels like he's going to score with Elaine. Yeah. He's in good spirits. And then he's like, "You know what, George? I want you to come back to the company. And you can use my bathroom whenever you want. It's, I can't let you leave, da 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 da." And so, George is like, "Oh shit. I want my job back. I don't want this guy, like, I don't want to go forward with the Mickey plan, Yeah. So, like, George is trying to get the guy not to drink his, the Mickey'd beverage. So he goes, but he can't because the boss is like, "Oh, I'm in great spirits." He's like, "I'm going to propose a toast." And so he stands up and, he's like talking about, it's like, great at the, whatever this company is. And then he talks about like how, "Oh, we're going to welcome back George." And then like, he just starts shitting on George in front of everybody in his toast.
Year. Called him a shrimp.
He's shrimpy guy. He sucks at his job. And then he's like, because George was kept saying, "Oh, no, Rick. And he's like, "All right, do you have anything to add, George?" He's like, "Drink up." He's like, George is like, "Fuck it. This guy, you had it coming."
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So the guy drinks the beverage and then it kind of cuts that scene. It goes back to Jerry's apartment. And he doesn't have this job again. So he's talking about like, more ideas of jobs that he could do. And him or Jerry and Elaine are talking to him, trying to be supportive. Same kind of thing of like, well, I don't remember what other jobs he was going to say. It was, anyways, so what I don't get is like, did he get fired again? Or did the guy know that George was the one who put the Mickey in?
Yeah, they didn't really,
it doesn't make sense.
I feel like there would have been a cut scene there. Like, it's almost like they planned on showing him getting fired again. Like they found him out,
but like, how would the guy?
He just quit.
How would the guy know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, or did George just be like, "I'm not going back to that place"? Yeah. To me, that's like a little thing of like, what happened? He got the job back. It could be like the guy's like, "Oh man, I just can't hold my alcohol," and then George goes back in on Monday. I'm like, cool. And then he can look for a job while he has one that he doesn't like. It was just like, a little piece of the writing that I was like, what happened? Excuse me, somebody, can you tell me what? Anyways, it goes, they're kind of, all three of them are there. And then Kramer comes in and hands Jerry an envelope. And then it's the $1,500 that Jerry had lost. Or thought that he thought the owner of the laundromat stole it. Turns out it was in Kramer's launder bag the whole time. So he's like, "How much did the damage on that machine cost?" He's like, $1,200. It's like, okay, so basically it just covers their revenge scheme. The revenge for the $1,500, it just now pretty much covers the broken machine.
But it's coming out of Jerry's pocket. Like, it's all Kramer's idea.
Kramer's idea, and he executed it. Yeah.
Kramer's fault. Kramer's idea for revenge, and Jerry's paying for it.
Mm-hmm. So, what is it? The Newman character screams for Kramer that he's on the roof and he's gonna jump, and then and they're talking about like, I'm gonna jump. It's like, oh, do you want to hang out? Go shoot some pool or something like that?
Shoot some pool.
It's like, no, I'm gonna see a movie. So you already know that the guy's not jumping. No, I'm gonna go see a movie. And it was the Netflix version had Larry David, which it's so Larry David.
That's interesting. Yeah.
He does also make a cameo in the next episode too. Spoilers.
Okay.
So he's actually like, you see Larry David in the next one. But it's just, kind of
this one's a heart attack, yeah.
Yeah. So this one was it ends with a bit talking about how, the best revenge is living well, talking about that. He's like, well, what movie was he talking about? Or like kind of actor? It's like, well, if you had like a movie where like your family got killed by some scumbag or whatever, it's like, the thing that you need is a new suit and a convertible. That'll show those punks that killed your family.
No revenge. We're Ashley's like, that's the worst revenge. She mentioned the Punisher. She goes, the Punisher would have sucked if that was a revenge. Like, his family gets killed, and he just gets a margarita and he's sitting on the beach.
Like, it's like, no, just just get a nice suit
relaxing
and a convertible. That's pretty good. But so that was end of episode 7. I guess I could look. I never really. But how many episodes are in season 2? Is it?
I think it's 13.
Okay, so it's definitely a full on season here.
Yeah. We're not into the 20s yet, but there's more. Yeah, but I found George in this one when he snuck back into work when he's at the desk. Mm-hmm. That was a perfect George scene. Like, just his character was really full blown there.
He's definitely good trying to play it off. It was joking. You thought that was real? It's like I joke all the time. You just don't know my humor. And he talks to the one like, don't I joke all the time? I'm like, not all the time. He's trying to get back up.
Not all the time. But...
He's like, you can't have my back here right now.
In the laundromat, Kramer's jacket was the suede jacket that was ruined in the rain. So he still was wearing that jacket.
Oh, really? I didn't notice. Shit.
Yeah, the one from the previous episode where it was Jerry's jacket that got ruined when he went out in the snow.
I didn't.
That's the jacket that Kramer was wearing in the laundromat.
Oh, damn. Yeah. Okay, I missed that little detail. Just noticed like some of like Jerry or George's suits and stuff like that he has. Like he's got like a corduroy jacket. Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, and the tie. He had like corduroy jacket. And the tie was like this, not tie fabric. It's whatever it was. Looked like it was crocheted or something.
Yeah, but it's a pretty good one. So, I guess we're gonna head on out of here. But before we do, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, and then we have a Twitter, right? So, and the
Twitter is second to ND button cast because Twitter's dumb. You need a shorter handle. So
yeah, it's all linked in the description of the podcast. So, I guess until then, we'll see you. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye now.